Hey everybody, Bonehead from the Bonehead Podcast, and welcome to Top 5 Friday. Every Friday we get together and we have a look at the top 5 something, normally to do with Blood Bowl. Now, we've been going through a series looking at the top 5 third-party teams for Blood Bowl, so as an alternative to the Games Workshop sculpts. And I got a bit carried away last week. We did Dwarves, which are a brilliant team. There are a ton of great teams out there for Dwarves. And then there are Deathrollers, and I got a bit carried away, a bit excited, and said that we'd do a top 5 Deathrollers as well. And we're going to do that. So we put a post out last week. We got some great suggestions from you guys. So we are going to have a look at the top 5 third-party Deathrollers. Before we move on, we've got to give a shout out to the Deathroller, the Dwarf Deathroller from Games Workshop. Now, I say from Games Workshop, realistically, it's from Forge World, which means we get this aberration of a price point, but it is a monster of a model. So if you want to treat yourself to something really nice to paint, and we've seen some really great examples of this on Whit Wednesday, just that this model can paint up wonderfully. There's a bunch of cool details. It is a really fun modeling project, and it is an absolute giant of a model. Like, this is a 32mm base, so as we spin the model, you can see that it takes up nearly 9 squares on a Blood Bowl pitch. It is completely unsuitable for Blood Bowl, and I think that's completely why I love it so much. That mixed with the goblin about to get put through the lawnmower part of it, it's just fantastic. It is a really great model. It is not what I was expecting when this must have been 2016, I guess, when this was released. It was not what I was expecting to see, and I am a big fan of it. However, it is Forge World, which means it is £53. So you're looking at 60 quid for this model plus postage. That's basically 2 boxes of Blood Bowl teams, which is an outrageous price. Great for a for a painting project, for a nice gift, something like that. Then yeah, awesome. But we've got some great alternatives for you. There's a couple of honorary mentions. We had some great suggestions from you all, so we're gonna have a look at a few honorary mentions before we hit our top 5. First up is the Caliverd 3D Deathroller guy, which is it's just got a load of character, and they've done a good thing and had the pictures separate. So this is an STL only. I'm sure you can get 3D print from Etsy or something like that. $4 for an STL is pretty cool. A couple of things I love about it. I love that it's got that classic spike look. So if you think about the original Deathroller, which I probably should have got a picture of. Do you know what? I mean, we'll save that because there's a... we'll save that. So the original Deathroller had the spikes, had a big barrel, had just a dwarf with goggles driving it around, having a great time. This gets so many elements of that, bang on the money, that it's just so cool. It's great, it's retro, and I'm a big fan of it. It is pretty good. Didn't quite make our top 5, but a good honorary mention, as was this. Now, I really loved this suggestion. This was a case of... It's not technically a Deathroller, but this model works so well for a Deathroller on my team. And you know what? So this is Fanath Hans the Mole. This is one of these stretch goal models that were released as part of the Dwarf Kickstarter many years ago now. And it's cool. It's a big mole rat being ridden around by a dwarf from the Fanath Dwarf team. And you guys know I love Fanath Dwarfs. So it's a very cool idea, but I wanted to highlight it to say that actually, you know what? If you've got a big guy, if you've got a Deathroller, it doesn't necessarily have to be a big guy or a Deathroller. It can be a model that you really love, and as long as it's big enough or small enough to represent what it is, you're good to go. I mean, you could just use one of Brute Fun's Croxagore models as a Deathroller if you wanted. I'm a big fan of using a Deathroller as Zug in a tournament build so that you can, actually use the Deathroller. Or, an even better one, College of Fire with Deathrollers as ogres. That, I think, is the dream for me. Anyway, Hans the Mole, I thought was another great suggestion there. And no, did this not make the top 5? Okay, wow, okay, well, that's how good the Deathroller kind of choice is, and I'm sure we're going to miss some out of here that you guys, we just haven't kind of crowdsourced. This is the Myth Bowl Dwarf team. Myth Bowl Mountain, I think, yeah, anyway, this is from RNE Studio. And someone suggested, well, this is no good, is it? This is no flipping good at all. Right, how do we do this? Let's go here, and then let's zip across to get an actual shot of the Deathroller. It's quite a cool dwarf team, isn't it? There we go. Right, Deathroller, zoom out a little bit, please. There we go. And I like it. I like it a lot. It's kind of got Panzer kind of vibes to it, and I'm a big fan of it. This is not working, is it? Because my stupid big head is in the way. Let's go. Let's just do that. There we go. Deathroller here. It's the only shot that we've got of it, but I mean, it covers all the bases. It looks more like a runesmith, like a dwarf rune lord on an anvil than it does an actual Deathroller being driven around. But I love it. You've got the dwarf kind of ancestral faces. You've got the kind of cogs. You've got the Deathroller bit, which are the rollers mixed in with the spikes and the cutty things. Very, very, very cool. But didn't quite make our top 5. But these did. Number 5, we've got the big roller. Now, this is from Yadaro Minute Models. I may have pronounced that wrong. Yadaro? Yadharo. There we go. Because I'm English, I will just read it as it is written. And this came from, I think, another Kickstarter. And it was a great suggestion. I hadn't thought about this one. I hadn't seen this model for a little while. It is a monster of a model. Now, we've got a dwarf here with a barrel, with a beer bucket, and just riding around on this automaton with wheels and just massive automatic hammer hands, which is just so cool. Like, this is so unnecessary and so dwarven, it's untrue. Now, if that's to scale, brilliant, then I think we can figure out that actually that's probably a 32 or 40 mil base, which means that model is, I don't know, 120, so it's 5 inches high? That's a big chap, which is so cool. Now, they've done a good job of keeping it in its kind of, in its cylinder, so to make it kind of fit on the base space. Until you turn it round and then you realise there's a ton of overhang. I loved this suggestion. It's so creative. And actually, it's available for £9.50 at the moment from Yodaro Miniatures. And if you're in the market for a physical model of a Deathroller, this is so much fun. You can't eat it, though. I think that's pretty much put in there. Not suitable for children under 36 months or gamers that eat things. We've had a lot of that recently. It's a bit worrying. Anyway, awesome model from Yodari Models. They do have a dwarf team as well that we didn't kind of get suggested last week, but are really cool. I think these are ones that kind of have like feline-looking faces. Like the Deathroller, the Troll Slayers do. Yeah. Cool team. Not my style. But the Deathroller is a beast. Number 4, it's our friends at Torchlight with their Deathroller bike thing that looks like something Count Dooku would drive around. I love this. The Torchlight Dwarf team was their first team. So this is Torchlight. They do STLs and they are very much available on Etsy and stuff like that if you want to pick up a 3D print of the team. Torchlight. Every month, they'll do a Blood Bowl team. It's brilliant. Their style, as you can tell from this model and actually some of their other dwarves, is a little bit more cartoony than the rest of kind of Blood Bowl. And I love it. They've got exaggerated features, which mean they're actually a ton of fun to paint up. And this Deathroller is really well done. Now, we did a print to pitch where we actually printed it off and had a look. And I think I printed it in a couple of scales because as kind of just what I do now, because I'm like, 100% is not big enough. Make it larger. And when it comes to the Deathroller, you're good to go. This is a really well-designed model. He's parked on one foot. Okay, so it's like he's driving around on a bike and he's just on one side and he's resting, which is wicked. But because of that, actually, it kind of creates the model at a slight angle, which means it fits in its cylinder really well. So even though this is a big model, okay, you've got a dwarf sitting down. The dwarf is exaggerated in size, so he's a bit bigger than a standard dwarf. So this model is bigger than a Blood Bowl ogre, basically. But because it's at a jaunty little angle, actually it saves a bit of cylinder space and it fits on the pitch really, really, really well. It's got what you need from a dwarf Deathroller. You've got engine parts that make it look mechanical. You've got spikes. You've got kind of dwarfic sculpture elements to it. It's just beautiful. Anvil Turbo Beers were a great team. Was their first one, and their Deathroller is just so much fun, and it has stood the test of time of the 8 months since it's been released. Things are very fast paced now. Anyway, really cool. Love the suggestion, guys, and I completely agree. Number 3, it is the Punga. What's it called? Dwarf Deathroller. Okay, fine. This is from Punga. Punga have got a Patreon, and every month they release some STL files. Normally their team takes 2 or 3 months to finish, where they release it in kind of packets, but it's $10 a month. So actually every 2 to 3 months you get a whole team, including big guys, support staff, some star players and stuff like that for £25-30. That's a price point I'm really happy with. The fact it takes a few months, actually. How often do you really fully print a team as soon as it lands out? Exactly. So they released this way early in their Patreon. This may have been the second or third team that they released on their Patreon. And they had the Deathroller, which was an absolutely awesome model. I've put it back up on there on my shelf at the moment, and it is an absolute chunky boy. Now, they've got 2 different versions, which I really, really appreciate. So it's this underwater vibe. Now, it was a pirate theme, because Punga love pirates, which is fine. And you've got this kind of Nautilus-looking underwater submarine with a dwarf in it. One thing to mention, the Dwarf is a slightly smaller scale than everything else, and if you want to scale the Deathroller, he ends up being a little bit on the small side, but he's inside the cockpit and you can't really see him, so it doesn't really matter. With the arms, this is a massive model, and it is so much fun. It's beautifully sculpted, it prints beautifully well, which is something I'm really, really excited about. But they've prepared a no arms option as well. Now, this one is clearly a lot less fun because it has got no big stompy arms. But if you are interested in playing and keeping it as easy as possible, then actually it's really cool. They've got this alternate sculpt for it. However, you want the big stompy arms. A load of you guys mentioned this, and I completely agree. It is a really cool Deathroller take. You know, you've got the classic kind of, it's moving around, it's big, it's stompy. It's just a lot of fun as a model, and it works beautifully as the Deathroller. Number 2, it's Grebo. We've got the ODIN, their Odin machine here. Now, we got to have a look at this when they did their Kickstarter. Just awesome, right? We've actually got a walker here, so if we move around you can see, and I love the way they've got actual shots of their models. These are kind of printed in Greeblood now, so they're high definition 3D prints, and they are beautiful models. We've done a Kickstarter review for this very team, and I've got this team on my shelf in one of where is it? It's in the bedroom, actually, where waiting to be painted, where it will probably stay for the rest of time. However, it is a very cool model. Now, Grebo Games, when they did this dwarf team, they kind of went World of Warcraft video gamey. It's kind of their deal. You know, Torchlight have exaggerated features. Punga's basically all pirate teams. And Grebo Games have this exciting video game twist to them, which pops. It looks so good on the tabletop. And this Odin guy comes with a 40mm base, I think, and you can see as we kind of spiral around, he's going to go outside of that 40mm base, but not so much that it's not usable. It's bang on the right scale. Okay, it's a big guy. It is a big model, and it's going to be a pain to drop down on the ground and roll around, but so is every other Deathroller, because Deathrollers are supposed to be big, chonky guys. This is not big enough to be a giant, but it is definitely big enough to be a giant ogre. So it works beautifully. The sculpting's fantastic. The production quality is just monstrously good. And Grebo, I mean, less than 20 quid for a model of this quality. It's just fantastic. We've seen the Forge World thing, £53 for that big chunk of resin, which is cool. And actually every one of these alternatives has been way under. And this Odin from Grebo is just an excellent example of a great different take. You've got a roller, you've got big stompy bits, you've got a dwarf with a cigar piloting it. Which takes us to number 1, which is the Fanath Deathroller. Now, it's kind of a cheat here because there's 2 different Deathrollers from Fanath, and they've both got the same vibes. I'll show them both off. So, this just absolutely smacks of the old Warhammer 2nd edition. And the 2nd edition? Well, no, the 3rd edition Dwarf Deathroller. And in fact, if we go to the other version, the Deathroller Classic, it's got that big barrel that runs stuff over, and it works so well. So if we go back in time, this is the original Deathroller, and it is tiny now. The dwarves of old are much smaller, but the dwarf Deathroller I got introduced to as I joined into Blood Bowl, I think probably a lot of you will as well. I'm not sure who's painted this, but it's the classic model, is this guy here. You've got a dwarf, maybe he's got a horned helmet, and he's got that big barrel of spiky metal, and it is so good. It is an absolute classic model, and it's just smacks of Blood Bowl to me, and the Fanath team have just absolutely captured it. Their whole team is a homage to Blood Bowl 3rd edition or 2nd edition. It's just nailed. They've got the exaggerated heads. You've got the armor that befits dwarf blood bowlers as opposed to dwarf warriors, and between these two Deathrollers I couldn't pick my favorite because they are so good. I've got one in resin somewhere. I need to paint it. Graham, I'm really sorry. I just love this model. Landed and was the first thing we saw of this Kickstarter when it dropped, and this was probably one of the first Blood Bowl Kickstarters I backed because it just is perfect to me for Blood Bowl. You've got dwarves that look like old school dwarves, and you've got sculpting and casting that are just new school quality. It's the perfect mix of old and new for me, and that is why the Fanath Deathroller is just the best. When it comes to a size-wise, it's big enough to be an ogre. It's small enough to be on the pitch and work. It is bigger than a dwarf. It's got a 32mm base, and it's bigger than its 32mm base. It will fit better on a 40mm base without being absolutely giant. Now, I know that you know how much I love this team. The Fanath Dwarves, they just remind me of when I started playing Blood Bowl, and that's probably leaning me to go with this one. But sculpting's awesome, character is awesome. You've got the beer barrel version as well for €15. You could buy 3 of these, the same price as Forge World, and I absolutely love it. This just screams dwarf engineer, and I love the guy with the beer barrel. It's just so much fun. I love Blood Bowl so much. Absolutely awesome. Now, I'm sure there's some Deathrollers that we've missed off. In fact, we had a couple of suggestions. Someone's, I think it was Gazatola, suggested the Impact Miniatures one. No, or Troll. There's Hungry Troll, their website's down, so I couldn't find the images for that. And Impact couldn't find their Deathroller, so I don't know which one that is. But there are many Deathrollers out there, and that's before you even start building your own, brewing it up, having stand-in models, using your favorite ogre model as your Deathroller, or using your Deathroller as your ogre model for an OWA team. That one I particularly like, and I think this team goes well with it. Deathrollers are a lot of fun in Blood Bowl. They're overpriced, and you won't get them to the pitch very often, but man, they just smack of everything I love about Blood Bowl. It's nonsense, it's over-engineered, and it's fun. Anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the channel even further, please like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Or come join us on YouTube Members or in Patreon, where you can get exclusive access to some content, some loot, early access to basically everything we do, as well as regular competitions. Or you can pick up some Bonehead Podcast loot either on our website at boneheadpodcast.com. We've got the Dungeon Bowl things, we've got tokens and stuff like that, or on our Spreadshirt site as well. Everything you do just helps us make more content and hopefully do it of better quality. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Happy blocking.